The long life of Stravinsky and the rapid transformation in music over recent years means that we have sufficient historical perspective with which to judge his work and to consider the Russian musician as one of the greatest creators in the art of music. When his ballet The Rite of Spring was premiered in Paris in 1913, something intrinsic to music was definitively undermined. The diatonic mode, on which the entire edifice of sound over the past 3 centuries had been built, was reeling. It is well known that the first performance was one of the last and greatest scandals in musical history, to the point where some members of the public came to blows. Stravinsky was 31 at the time and was already very well known due to the great success of 2 works, The Firebird and Petrushka. These, in spite of their great originality, continued the brilliant way forward opened up by the Russian nationalists. But although The Rite of Spring maintains links with this pathway, the novelty of its harmonic chording, the harshness of its orchestration, and the provocative rhythms disconcerted and provoked, in turn, the enthusiasts of the time. Cosmic powers, tribal rituals, and violent primitive struggles had been transferred to the world of music with an originality and authority that were quite unexpected. That rough, harmonic canvas, made up of polytonal games and infused with a new concept of rhythm, shook the foundations of traditional music. For 30 years after that premiere, Stravinsky held Western Europe in thrall, and amazingly, each of his new compositions over a long period represented a new, frequently disconcerting change of direction. I remember, because I was there, the surprise caused at the first performance of Symphony of Psalms. Nobody could have expected from the composer of Raymond a work of such serene and profound religious feeling, of such sober beauty, and so many other examples could be provided. Music's in debt to Stravinsky for many things, above all because he nurtured in his music a rhythm that constantly enlivens it, and which has increased the possibilities for rhythm in a completely unexpected way. Before Stravinsky, rhythm had been the least evolved of all the elements of music. I'd like to end this brief commentary by recounting an amusing but significant and instructive anecdote about Stravinsky, which I witnessed. Paul Dukas, who died in 1935, was succeeded by Stravinsky as Professor of Composition at the École Normale de Musique, where I, as a student of Dukas, had spent several years. I was extremely curious to know how those classes would be given under the leadership of Stravinsky. And indeed the nature of those classes had changed markedly. The place was full of young American students, attracted by the novelty of Stravinsky's music. The composer seated at the piano was deciphering and playing the students' homework, and they, undoubtedly thinking it would flatter the maestro, had sulkily put together the most aggressive clusters of chords and inextricable rhythms. Patiently, Stravinsky played them as best he could until suddenly, with a bang on the piano, he shouted, "Why, I ask you, is it necessary to write such dissonance?"